Say, kids, what time is it?
Give it up
We
for
got it.
Nick. Nick is actually our introduction for the PDR Tool Time here. Nice job, Nick. We appreciate that. All right, here we go. Dude, what's up, everybody? My name is Mike Toledo here with Vince D'Alessandro and Daniel Grom. You should see these guys. These guys are dancing in the background as the music is going. Special thanks to Nicholas D'Alessandro. Thanks, Vince, for letting your little man in there give us the intro there, man. That's cool.
Absolutely, make him PDR Tool Time famous out there in the airways.
Hey,
Cool.
how old is your kid?
He is 9, almost 10. May 11th, he'll be 10.
Perfect time for starting to train.
Yeah. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Avon's going to start this summer. That should be some. What kind of tools would you use to train your kid? You know.
So I did this. I started my kid on glue pulling. I gave him a mini lifter and some glue, and I had a hail hood, and I set him loose on it, and he thought it was great.
I
Loved it.
have to say, I think that is probably, you know what, glue pulling's probably going to be the most interesting to them because you're dealing with material. It's kind of fun to do it. You know, my son,
Yeah.
I bring him with me. He likes to pull it, and then clean up the glue, and you kind of build his interest, on it.
It's a little bit dangerous too with the hot glue. You could burn yourself.
Well, it only takes one time for them to learn.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a little hot.
Yeah.
Hey, so check this out, man. Today, I passed by my neighbor's car like every day. He's got this kind of beat up vehicle, and honestly, it looked like somebody kicked his door in, which I think what happened.
A hoopty?
Yeah.
A little bit of a hoopty?
And so I go, gosh, man, I could just call the free that out, but what if I might get in trouble if I just pull it for him and yada yada. So one day I see him, which was today, and I cut him off, man, before he could leave. He got in his car and I just cut in front of him and stopped him. I look like one of those gypsy guys, like, hey man, you want that dent fixed? I told him, I said, hey, do you want me to take care of that dent for you? And he's like, well, how much are you gonna charge me? No, I'm not going to charge you nothing. I go, I'm just tired of looking at that dent, man. I go, I just want to help. He goes, man, I'm a college student. I don't have any much money. That's awesome. I said, no problem, man. I go, look, you got to do me one favor. He's all, yeah. I go, hold my phone and just video this. All right. He's like, yeah, okay, no problem. So I'm going, man, this is going to be great, man. I'm going to take care of this guy and, he's going to be happy. And
I picture a train wreck coming.
A human tripod?
So anyhow, I yeah, a human tripod. I have to tell a story privately about one of my human tripods, but anyways, we'll get back to that. So he's like, yeah, no problem. So everything's going well, man. The Cola Free is just yanking this dent out. Bah, bah, bah. It's going really good. And I forgot to mention, he's got a little bit of rust above his dent, and. Because where the kick was.
I already know where this is going, man.
So I put it near it, dude, and I find the biggest yank, man. I didn't cuss right there. I take the friggin' biggest yank, and off goes his paint, dude. I'm like, oops. So I felt really bad, man. I felt it was probably a good, I don't know, silver dollar size. Yeah. And that just came off. It just flaked off,
Yeah.
all over my Cola Fria too. And I'm like, well, bummed because I couldn't pick it out in front of him. I'm just like, gosh, dang it. He goes, did the paint break? Did the paint come off? Yeah, a little. I was embarrassed, man. I said, look, man, I go, I can take care of this. Honestly, I can do it a little bit more for you, and just, I feel bad. Let me take some of this out for you. He's like, no, it's a hoopty guy. It's my college car. I just graduated, but so I don't have much money. I'm feeling worse and worse as he's talking. So we're gonna schedule it to take care of it. I'm just gonna take care of it for him. So something quick and easy. I thought it turned into a, well, let me pay you now.
Yeah, exactly. Guys have to take the cola free a lot more serious because I've actually had the same problem. It will pull paint. Period.
Oh yeah, even near paint that's gonna pull.
I videotaped pulling paint on that RAV4, brand new
Yeah.
Toyota RAV4 on the back.
Oh
Took
man,
a dime-sized chunk of paint right off
that's
it.
that's what I have.
Yes, you do.
You took a. I don't like that paint, honestly. I got rock chips like crazy, easy within like the first week I got it. I was like dying for my friend. Hey, you need to put the clear bra on it as quick as you can.
What's going on with paint these days, man? I think they're
It's crap.
doing something. It is.
It's like repaint paint.
God,
it has
is
no
bad.
strength. It has no strength.
It's not bonding to the metal very well.
No. So that's something you guys got to watch out for.
I was working on a Mazda today, and I was glue pulling, and it was on the lower part of the rocker panel. So I was in the gravel guard, and so I was being really gentle because I was aware that I could pull paint, and so I lifted it, but I made sure I didn't snap it, right? And then I took the glue off with solvent, and I peeled it off. It peeled the paint right off with it.
Now, what made you think that you had to be careful? What gave you that idea?
Gravel guard is just inherently fragile. Period.
Oh, you're talking like on the lower part of the panel where it's kind of like rigidy
Exactly.
and looks
Yeah.
real textured. You're talking
Yeah.
that?
The rocker panel usually has gravel guard. You see it
But-
on Toyotas and Mazdas.
Yeah, the Tacomas.
But I
Yeah.
didn't snap it. I mean, the glue tab was still locked on there, and I used solvent and I peeled it off. And as I was peeling it off, peeled a nice little chunk of paint off with it. I was like, son
That's
of
a good.
bitch.
Honestly, that's a good thing you mentioned that because I was not aware of that myself.
Yeah. Gravel guard is dangerous. Don't glue pull.
It's
on
a bitch to
gravel
try to
guard.
see a reflection with too. I mean, it's I don't
It's
know how it
well,
is for
it's not
fog,
even
but
easy
lines
doing
is
a
hard.
conventional repair on it. It doesn't work the same. It's difficult to deal with.
Why don't they just clear bra that area? I mean, just instead of putting that crap on it. So, anyways,
Well, I did the same thing, Daniel, years ago. A brand new Lamborghini, and the paint stayed on until I went to go take that tab off, and it was for Giovanna Wheels Company. This guy has at least like $1 million worth of cars in his warehouse. He's always putting wheels on and showcasing it and all that. I'm like, you really want that dent out? I really don't want a glue pull on your brand new Gallardo convertible, the only one in the country that color at the time. And he's like, yeah, just take it out. And I mean, it was the size of my pinky nail and super soft. I'm like, okay, I'll just do a little squeeze on it. Did a little squeeze. I'm like, okay, that's probably good enough. I go to take that tab off. Boom, a big old chunk of paint. And what's underneath the paint? You could see filler. So, that was the last time I ever pulled on a Lamborghini. Nowadays, it doesn't matter because it's fiberglass anyway, or carbon fiber.
Well, they still make them out of aluminum. You're right,
Yeah,
though.
usually the hoods are aluminum.
You are, though, right about that Lamborghini paint. I pulled paint, too. Clear coat off of those.
Yeah.
Those.
And, well, Lamborghini is PPG. So, yeah.
All right.
That matters.
So our topic tonight, or whatever, whenever you guys are listening to this, is what do you guys use what kind of tools or technique you guys do to remove creases? I'm not talking little light creases. I'm talking good foot to 3 foot nice crease. All right, we'll start with you, Vinny, because we usually start with Daniel, because Daniel can't wait to always talk, man. So we're gonna give him a break. Okay.
Well, okay. Well, there's that Pro PDR Solutions tip that you gave me that looks like a whale tail. That's one of the tips that I use to getting out creases. But even before I start that, I do try to get the meat of a crease out quickly using my Craftsman hammer a lot of the times.
Yeah.
I do.
What do you mean using your Craftsman hammer? What are you talking about?
I use the rubber side of my if it's an open access.
You take it. I'll take that tip off and put it on your tools.
No, not at all. Not at
What are you
all. If it's
talking
open
about?
access, if it's in a quarter panel or if there's a panel off on a door, I had
You like to do hammer and dolly thing? Is that what you're saying?
sometimes I do a hammer and dolly if it's really sharp to get the sharpness out. But I tend to use I use my hammer. If it's open access, I always grab a hammer first if it's open access on a big crease, just to get the meat of it out. Then I'll switch to a soft tip, an ultra soft tip, and I'll also finish with the pencil tip from an ultra. That's usually my routine. But I tend to grab my hammer a lot. If it's open access and I can get behind it, I will use my hammer and basically blend it out on the opposite side. With my head sticking outside the panel, with my light board set up so I could see each hit that I'm making, just like I'm blending on the outside of the panel.
Huh.
Now,
Well,
if it's in a non-accessible area where I'm going down through a window, I will once again grab a ultra soft tip tool, and sometimes I'm using, you know what, to be honest with you, now that I'm thinking of it, I'm usually using the rigid soft tip that slips over, A44, I believe it is.
uh-huh.
And then I'll switch to a pencil tip to finish off the dent.
Yeah.
But I almost prefer creases underneath braces on doors. I would rather use a whale tail
Yeah.
and have more control,
Me too.
sharp pushes, and nice tight pushes and zipper it up. Because back in the day, the way I was taught to do a crease was to start at one end and you act like a zipper and you just zipper it closed. And then you start at the beginning again and bring it up another layer and another layer. And then you're on the outside and you're knocking down the high spots and the crowns that are developing as the whole thing is coming up. But I know it might sound weird, but I do like it better when there's a crease on a door behind a brace than open access.
Yep, I do. I agree with that. You agree with that, Daniel? With how Vinny does it?
Yeah, I'm so the first thing obviously is heat. You got to always use heat when you're working on a crease. Number one, I make sure the panel's about 130 degrees. Right now, the weather where I'm at is really nice. It's 74 degrees right now, and I still use heat.
Do you think
It's
that
just
helps? Is that for you? Number one, prevent cracking. Number two, is just to keep a lot of flexibility in it as you
Yeah.
push, or what?
So think about when you go to a body shop and they just painted a car and they have that paper that's got overspray paint on it. You can take that piece of paper that's got paint on it, base coat, clear coat, and you can take that paper and test this. I challenge you guys to do this. Take that paper and fold it and see how far you can fold it before it cracks. Then take that same piece of paper and do the same exact thing, put heat on it, and fold that paper and see if it cracks. It doesn't crack when you have heat on it, period. It's a precaution. If you just get in the habit of doing it all the time, in 90% of the cases, you'll never have to worry about paint cracking on you and not having to come up with an excuse. So that's my first precaution. And that's the nice thing about having a shop is always having your tripod heat gun sitting there. I have it ready. The first thing I do is throw that on there, start heating up the panel. And the first tool I grab is usually a ultra soft tip. And I go in there and I call it roughing out a dent. So I'm taking out the majority of the dent with a soft tip and get it to that level. Now, one of the things that I love that John Hiley talked about, and he quantified this in words that intellectually I always knew and did, but I didn't know how to put it into words. But he said the dent to eyebrow ratio. And when he told me that, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I do.
What do you mean?
So when you're working on a dent, I usually work the dent out first before I start hitting out eyebrow. But there is a point where you need to hit down the eyebrow first before you start working out
Now you're talking like
more of that dent.
nasty deep creases, like stuff like that, right? Because I
Yeah,
don't do that. I don't really do that on lighter dents, on lighter creases at all. I just push it out. But anything,
See, to me, it's more of an instinct.
yeah.
Yeah. You don't, do you?
I like, that's why that's why we're having this discussion, because people do it a different way. And I think that's why people want to hear this, is like, Vince got his way, you got your way. I kind of do it a little bit of both of you guys, but you say you heat your creases up all the time. I hardly ever heat my creases up, but I'm going to try it because it might actually make it easier for me. I haven't thought about that. So.
I'm the same way. I don't apply heat to creases. But I get what you're saying because it's precautionary. But for a mobile guy that's out there that now has to pull out his cord and find an outlet at the house and plug in their heat gun and find their tripod or go back and forth with the heat gun, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, and I understand that. I
was
in that world for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
No, that's why it's interesting for me to hear, how you do your creases. That's why we brought this subject up, because I knew you guys do it a certain different way. So your own way.
And even after the prior podcasts that we've had and talking to you, Daniel, whenever I do a gas tank now, I do put heat on it constantly. I don't like to do it because I got hot air blowing on me, and I'm in Southern California. And it's already friggin' 94 degrees out today.
Yeah, but you have to do it.
Right. But I've been doing it as a precautionary because you don't want to be 90% on a dent, and next thing you know, snap.
Exactly.
Now you're not getting paid. Now you have to go tell this dude, hey, sorry, man, I just cracked paint on your beautiful Harley that you love more than your wife.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's way more crucial on a bike.
Yeah, I don't mean to change subjects, but I mean, that used to happen to me for years, and I was such an idiot for the longest time doing tanks, and I would get to 90%, like Vince is saying, and crack the last 10%, like when I was just about done, and I was like, I couldn't understand it. I was scratching my head, going, "Why? I tapped down like crazy. There's no, there's nothing really, holding this dent," and I didn't realize it was so much clear coat.
But you have to realize, yeah, that's exactly the right thing there, Mike. Is there's a lot more paint on a tank.
Yeah.
And going back to what we were talking about before is paints are more
brittle.
They're, I don't know what they are. What do you want to call them? I mean, Subarus. Tell me what Subaru does different than everybody else. But yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. And Subaru's paint is so brittle, it's so fragile. I mean, you can pull paint. Yeah, Subaru paint is fragile. Why?
Fragile.
Yeah. and you were just saying that the Audis or no? What?
No, Infinities.
Infinities.
Yeah,
their paint's fragile.
It is. And now the the Toyotas. Me and Vince know. You have to be so careful about color sanding on those things. I mean, especially near a curve on like a Toyota Prius. I've burned paint twice on a Prius that I would never burn paint on any other car, but it goes right through real quick. I mean, it's almost like they forgot to put the clear coat on.
Now,
I've been talking to my detailer about stuff like that. And Daniel, you have a detailer too that's in your shop. I have one in my shop. And they could shine a lot of light on paint because my guy's a paint correction detailer. And he's always like, oh, this paint is so soft. Oh, this paint is so hard. Oh, it's so hard to get these scratches out. The paint is so tough and hard. So, that's one thing that is good to do is go and talk to your detailer about different makes and models of cars with the types of paints that are on there. And it kind of gives you an idea. And that's why, like, even at MTE, I'll go sit in on some of those seminars at the detailing seminars to find out what their knowledge is on paint. But
right.
Something is definitely going on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, we're talking about techniques. honestly think that's a way overlooked subject right there. That techs need to actually pay attention to detailers and the paint, especially today. Now, all these guys are now, the big thing now is the OptiCoat, the ceramic coating, all these crazy expensive coatings that you're putting on the cars. You know, what can you use it to your benefit, you know, when you're doing a repair, you know?
And I think that's going to be a great subject in the future for us to talk about. And
Yeah.
I know Vince has a lot of
Maybe we could bring
experience
your
with that.
detailer on,
Yeah.
Daniel. He's
Yeah.
a good detailer.
And Vince too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back to Creases, Daniel.
Okay.
So here's another tool that guys might not be utilizing, but I have a paint thickness gauge, an electronic paint thickness gauge. And before I glue pull anything, I always test it. And I can tell right away. I mean, if the mils jump up, normal paint is about 3 to 4 mils for a factory paint job. If it jumps up to 7 to 12, it's been repainted. And I know right away. And I tell the customer, hey, it's been repainted. I don't feel comfortable with glue pulling. And if you want me to go forward, you take all the risk.
Yeah, you sign this.
Yep. Sign
Now,
this. Sign here now.
Paint pen. Where did you get those paint pens? Those suckers are expensive, man. I don't know. There's so many different ones. I want to know which one I want to get.
Honestly, I have 3 of them. And
Okay.
the best one I have
Uh-huh.
is from Harbor Freight.
Really? They have one there?
They had one. They don't sell it anymore.
Of course not.
And they had it for under $100. And honestly, it works great.
Now, did you take it back to your shop and put it on the bench grinder and grind it down a little bit?
No. And honestly, it's magnetic. It's electronic, but it works off of magnetics. And all you're doing is trying to find out if there's a difference between panels. And if it jumps up, you know if a panel's been repainted.
What's it
That's
called?
all
A paint what? What's that called?
paint
Depth.
thickness, a depth or a paint thickness gauge or a depth gauge or a.
Here's the deal with those, though. They're not going to be accurate, 100% accurate. And like you said, you have to check them against different panels.
Yeah.
Now, some of them don't work on aluminum panels. So,
Yeah.
Some of them obviously don't work on carbon fiber panels either.
Now there are ones that are very expensive. They're
They're like $3,000 or $5,000.
No, they're
aluminum.
$500.
They're down about $500-600, and they will test any aluminum or any other metal.
Yeah, I need to get one of those. I mean, with all the glue pulling we do, guys, I think every tech should think about getting one of those. I mean, I keep forgetting to get it, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah.
Well, the guys at PDR College were talking about it some episodes ago. I don't know when, but they use it as a sales technique as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell customers, I have good customers that I go, if you're going to be buying a car, bring it to me and I'll evaluate it for you, and I'll test it.
Yeah.
And it works good. I've had several customers bringing cars to me.
Okay. Well, all right, let's move on.
Okay, so
Crease.
going back to Creases. So what do you do, Mike?
I pretty much did whatever you guys do. Now I'm going to talk about how I look at the crease, and then I'll go into my tools. Of course, you guys know I use the lines. Anyhow, what I do is I set the lines up going with the crease, as most guys do with their own reflection. And so I set it up. I'd like to judge to see how deep the dent is. That'll tell me how many passes, or like you would say, Daniel, you like to rough it up. I call them passes because it might take me 2 or 3 passes to get to a certain part. I really don't go, if it's a 3-foot crease, let's say, okay, I'm going to work probably about 4 or 5 inches at a time. I'm not going to do one giant long pass because there's not enough metal. Technically, if it's a deep crease, I'm referring to deeper creases, not referring to light creases. That's not enough metal to actually try to go through the whole thing and pass through it. Because if you do that, you're going to lock metal up. You're going to create a lot more pressure. And you tend to actually get impatient if you don't keep it short, at a time. And when you get impatient, you guys know what it turns into. It starts turning into a zipper effect, especially if you turn your board across it. Then you can see all your mistakes that you make. So I prevent that. I try to go in small increments and break it down, and I don't go forward on the crease until that part is done, completely done. So I'm talking longer creases, not short creases. So
now let me ask you this: what's your percentage that you will start with glue pulling first with a crease?
It depends on how wide that crease is. So if it's a wide crease, I will glue pull it. If it's in a bad location, for instance, I actually did a Ford Ranger, older one, maybe a 97, 98. Those things are tough. I used Keith Constantino's green tabs, little crease tabs, got it all the way out. Like literally, like within half hour, got it out. It was a light crease, it wasn't deep, but let's say if it was a little bit thicker, yeah, I would definitely do that. I actually do that. Like I had a crease that was very close to an edge of a door on the seam. Only way you could really get to it was a whale tail. So, but you know how when you have a deep crease and you have a thin whale tail, what's going to happen? What do you usually end up doing? You're going to chew it up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so deep. So going back to what you're mentioning is I'll put a glue tab on there, lift most of the meat out, and then take my whale tail. So I'm only pushing on half the depth or 3/4 of the depth as it used to be. So that's my technique on something real close, the crease. Go ahead, Vinny.
Now, I have another technique too, and we discussed this years ago on doording.com. We had a good topic on creases going. Dave Pinto kind of does the same thing, Ding Guy. And that is with the nylon tip. I do use nylon tips on creases as well, very successfully. And if you have the proper leverage and the right angles and everything, you could pretty much reverse that crease in one pass just by sweeping a nylon tip directly on the center of that crease and just slide it right across that crease.
I think Bryce Kelly does that technique as well.
Who does?
Bryce Kelly.
Okay. Because, in fact, I did it 2 days ago. I was at a body shop. I had a Chevy panel van, and the big old sliding door had 2 creases in it. Both of them were about 7 inches long. And I had perfect access to it. And I took my Dent Wizard Johnson nylon tip tool, which, Mike, you know that. You've seen it before. And I put it in there. I worked one of the creases up, and it took me forever because those panel vans, it's like galvanized steel or high strength steel or something. Something's weird about that metal. And I was sweating bullets trying to get a friggin' 7-inch crease out, which should have been super simple. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try and slide this next one right across it. And zoop.
Yeah.
Right back to normal. And now I had some knocking down to do on the outside, but I had that 7-inch crease out within 3 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I know that's a technique, and I don't think I don't give it much thought when I'm doing a crease. I'm just so used to doing it the way I do it, I forget to try that. So,
well, the thing is, you have to have full control of your tool, because if you slip off, you got a snail trail going in the opposite direction or something else going on.
Yeah. The other thing, in my opinion, is it's easier to crack paint when you're dragging a tool like that.
Yeah, I would think it would be, but it was a fleet van. They just wanted it cleaned up.
Yeah.
And
because you're shocking the metal more.
Yeah, I was kind of shocking the metal, and I was giving myself an opportunity, a learning experience, because we all are still learning, even though all of us are 20 plus years techs at this point. We're still learning something every day about our job.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, when I'm working at crease, is what I'm not. We're going to talk more just as much as the tips pushing, but more of tapping too, because I don't think techs understand that, or the new ones at least. They don't realize that tapping is just as important as pushing. On a lot of techniques, especially with the creases, because if you don't tap it, if you don't release pressure, as you were talking about earlier, you're talking about crowns and the eyebrow, Daniel. If you don't release it right, you didn't do anything. So you're just actually adding to the problem. So that's
now you guys call them eyebrows. Some people call them crowns. Some people call them smiles. Some people call them frowns. There's so many different.
I call it tightness.
Tight.
It's all the
Big
same.
mount. Yeah. For
all the
those
same
listening, there might be, a term that they're used to, kind of like color sanding and wet sanding. If you go out here in California, they call it color sanding, but in the Midwest, they call it wet sanding.
Yeah, I call it spit sanding. So, loogie sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the other thing is talking about is the technique of, well, what tool am I using? So that depends on, again, how deep it is. So I could use a glue pull tab. I can go an R4 R4 tool tip to push some of that out. I can go nylon tip, which I like. I'm using more and more, Vince, the same type of nylon tip that you're using. Kind of like a rounded, like almost like it's not a bullet tip. It's like a blunt round tip, right, Vince?
Yeah.
I mean, how would you describe it? It's like it looks like a thumb almost, like a thumb round thumb tip.
Sure. You probably got one in your Anaconda.
Yeah.
There's one in your Anaconda.
Yeah, I got one of those, and the PDR Finesse sells them. I don't know why a lot of other companies don't sell them, but Finesse, I found one on Finesse. It's black and it's freaking good, and it gives you enough push power to really if depends on how hard you push, depends on what kind of push you're getting. So, you could soft push it, or you could get a nice sharp push with it and make highs like crazy if you wanted to.
So you're gonna like this. I've got a tool that I accidentally made. So it's a double bend blade tool from Ultra. So it's a shave tool, right?
Yep.
And it's got a blunt end on it. Well, this tool broke. So it went from a double bend to a single bend, but it's still a blade. And I have a blunt tip. I sanded it down so it has a blunt tip, but it's a blade. And that's my go-to crease tool now. And it works fantastic because it's got that blunt tip so you can drag it like you guys were saying earlier. And it's the perfect shape for a crease. And so just pushing, it'll push a crease out perfectly. And it was all by accident. And that tool is fantastic.
Now, can I give you a little alter, something that you could take to your bench grinder? Take that tool now. And are you basically using the utmost tip of that, the roundness of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Shave it on each side. And make it flat on each side. Just take it off a few mils. And what that's going to do is you will be able to use that as a sharp tip as well. I'm going to send you a picture of the one I have.
Okay.
You got to send a picture so everyone knows what the heck you're talking about.
Yes, we'll do. I'll put it up there. Because it'll save you from going and grabbing a sharp tip if you needed to make a sharp push in between.
Couldn't you do the whale tail thing? Oh, well, that you're not going to fit the whale tail in every area.
Whale tails are a little bit too flexible.
No, I meant the tip. The tip. Yeah, because me and Vince got a whale tail tip. Don't you have that tip yet?
Oh, I see what you're saying. But you can't fit that through a hole.
That's what I was just saying. I say you can't fit that in every hole.
I'm talking about fitting it through a hole or something like that.
All right. What's your best starting tool tip you use, or tool? With combination tool and tip. If it's a screw-on tip, you tell me the tool and then tell me the tip.
Well, I mean, soft tip, roughing out dent, and then.
All right, let me give you a scenario. How's this? So that way. Crease in. I'm going to do 3 areas. Crease in a panel, a door panel. What are you going to go? What's your go-to? No bootleg front door.
Going down through a window.
Open access.
I'll usually go with a slow J tool first. And work from one end to the other, and then come back and finish it off with a sharp tip tool. I mean, every crease, no matter what, if I'm working a pick or whatever, I'm going to finish that crease off with a pencil tip or a very sharp tip tool at the very end. And I always use, to finish off a crease, I'm using jeweler magnifying glasses.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, a customer just gave me some of those.
Yeah. If you're going to finish off a dent, I mean, it really gets you in the nitty gritty. I don't care how good your eyes are, but Vince is laughing.
My eyes aren't good anymore, dude. I mean, they just took a crap like last year.
You guys are old.
Screw you, Vince.
You wait, dude. It's gonna just turn off like a freaking light, dude.
No, you laugh, but you put those jeweler glasses on, and you'll go, "Oh shit! Oh, okay, I get it."
No, it's easy, and you know what? You're not stressing, so your eyes aren't stressing.
No,
it's like you know what? I'll put it this way,
That-
Vinny. Stop laughing. Vinny's laughing his butt off. He's smiling. Honestly, you guys try to do a dent, which you're kneeling on in a comfortable spot, and you're doing a dent, and you know you should be getting a chair, but you don't. You just freaking sit through it, and you try to freaking push through it, but your freaking knees are killing you, or your whatever's your nuts you're crunching your nuts, whatever it is, it's bothering you. And it's bothering you. And what it is that you're not concentrating because why? Because you're not comfortable. It's just like a good pair of glasses. So if you can put those glasses on and suck it up for looking like a nerd or an old fart, you know, your repair is gonna be better. And if you're comfortable,
Vince, me and Mike are coming down to kick your ass.
No, me and Daniel get it, dude. All right. So
That's because I told you about it, and then once you used it, you called me back and you said,
F&A.
"All right, I get it."
F&A, yeah, these are good.
I guess
okay,
that's
Vince.
something to look forward to in old age, in old dent age. I'm gonna have to get some jeweler's glasses.
It is what it is. Hey, Vince, front door, open access. What are you using?
Front door open access. I'm gonna use a Ultra ST3810, and with a soft tip.
Describe that. ST3810. Oh, it's a soft tip, double bend.
That's a soft tip, double bend soft tip.
Uh-huh.
Open access. I'm going to go down through the window, and I am going to use the A44 soft tip for that tool, and I'm going to most likely use the rigid plastic soft tip cover for that rather than the soft chair rail cover. Are you following me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll make about 2 or 3 passes, knock down the smiles, crowns, frowns. What'd you call them?
The tightness.
The tightness. And then I'll switch tips and I'll switch over to the pencil tip to pick out any lows that I might have missed on the several passes that I'm making.
Yeah, so we all pretty much do it the same way. I think a lot of techs are going
Now,
right.
okay, let's talk about light position. So I always set up 2 lights for a crease. I set one vertical and one horizontal. And when I'm roughing out a dent, I work on the vertical and rough the dent out, work from one end to the other. And then I come back and I start over and I work the horizontal.
I'm always perpendicular to the dent to start off. If it's a horizontal crease, the board is set up horizontal.
Yeah.
For at least 1 or 2 passes.
What if that
then I'll go
crease is
diagonal.
really spread? What if that crease is really spread out?
I will. Well, I don't necessarily set up 2 boards ever. If it's horizontal and it's going to be right there, it's going to be less than a foot away from me, so I could always move it if I need to.
Yeah.
But I will start off perpendicular to the dent, but then I will switch it to a diagonal across it, and that's, I guess, what you're getting at. It's not until the later stages where I'm at like 90% of repair that I will check horizontal or vertically of the dent, the opposite direction of the dent, to see, if I'd have a big smooth mound going, or do I have some high spots or lows that I can't see horizontal, and then I'll knock it all back down, and usually I will finish a horizontal crease vertically.
Got it. Yeah. All right.
Okay, I got something I want to talk about. So I want to coin this phrase. Cross-check blending. What does that mean to you guys?
It means you've had too many painkillers tonight. You need to go to bed. You're giving me a headache.
cross-check blending. So if you start blending any dent, I don't care what it is, crease, whatever, you start or blending out that crown or whatever. I challenge every guy to, once you work it one way, turn that light on the other side of it.
Oh yeah.
And blend it out from the other direction.
That's how you keep it balanced. Exactly. That's how I say keep your dent honest, because it looks great if you work it too long of an angle or too long from one angle. It'll look great, but it'll look lopsided from the other side.
But when I've had guys that work for me, they never did that.
Yeah.
They never did that process. And I would drum it into their brains to get them to do it.
Well, I guess they never looked at their dent after they're done then. They basically just looked at that one side and said, it looks good from here, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
if you don't check your dent at the very end from one direction and then flip the light over to the other direction, you're not being professional, in my opinion.
Well, you have to do that, especially if you can't push from one other side, like a quarter panel, knocking down.
It's the only way to do a professional job for your client.
Exactly.
You have to cross check. I think that's what separates the men from the boys out there in the world too. Is like that last 10% of a dent. Some guys just cannot get the last 10% of the dent out. And I believe a lot of it is because they're not cross-checking it the opposite direction that they've been working it the whole time.
And Mike's very, very correct when he says that you can't work it. You can only work a dent from one direction sometimes. If it's in the front of the door and there's no way to work it from the other direction, it's just not physically possible.
Well,
but you can always blend from the other direction. I don't care what you say.
That's what I'm saying. You can balance it out doing the opposite on the other side.
And it's so important. So, having your light set up so you can cross-check both directions, so important. Blending both directions, so important.
Well, you guys probably don't know when I get close to finishing a crease, obviously we're using sharper tips like you guys are mentioning what you guys do, and especially you, Daniel. My lines have to get super thin too. So the reflection of the line pretty much has to match the thickness of the line. I mean, the crease. Sometimes actually the line has to be smaller than the crease so I can see my pushes. So I can see any kind of, any flaw, any high or low, because if I make my lines too thick, and I'll make a bunch of pock marks or high spots inside the crease. And you guys know what it means when you guys do that, put like high spots inside of a crease. It's almost game over if you don't know how to fix it.
You are talking to 2% of the dent population out there with that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the other percent might learn and go, so that's how a little bit of their technique. Hopefully,
I shouldn't say 2%. I think it's up to 4.5% now. That are using lines. So you know what? A lot of guys are using lines to finish dents and get that last part out that they can't get out with fog. So me personally, I could get it out with fog, but you know what? Some of the guys, maybe they're not able to get that 10% out with the fog board. Or they need those lines to get that 10% out. Yeah, whatever's going to make the finished product perfect for the client is really what we're all after anyways.
That's right. I mean,
you know where I find lines work really well is when you have
a big sack of cocaine in front of you.
Yeah. when you have a weird transition in the panel, when you got a concaved or you've got some weird body lines going on, and honestly, I've grabbed my Mike Toledo line board and I throw it up there and I double check my work with the Mike Toledo line board, and I'll see stuff that I couldn't see in the fog because you got all these weird transitions. Have you guys worked on those ghost body lines in a panel where you're like, is that a dent?
Yeah.
Or is that?
Yeah.
And then you go over to the other side of the car and you check it. Oh, that's supposed to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I start knocking down that high and you're
Dude,
like, oh, that's the body line.
I actually
Yeah.
took a customer's car and I flattened their factory body line. Swear to God, like
I've done it too, man. I've done it.
5-6 inches of it, man. Just
Right.
like maybe more. I can't remember. Maybe
And you
12
have to
inches, dude.
rebuild
And
it.
I had to. I go, holy crap! It's either okay. I tapped this side down or I fixed the one that was right. And I always had to go fix it.
Yeah,
But
Toyotas are the worst because they got these
Yes.
body lines that start off really aggressive,
really subtle.
and then they fade off to nothing,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're like, oh, that's not supposed to
Yeah,
be
well,
there.
Hey,
Turn it on.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Now, okay, you use the line board to see something that you can't on your fog, but when you see it on the line, are you able to fix it with the line, or do you switch back to your fog? Now that you've seen it in line, you know
So
it
you can-
exists.
So you can compare it and look what it looks like.
I've
So,
started developing my eye for the line board,
Mm.
so I can use it. It's a
Well,
learning
you know
curve.
that Line Board 101 DVD is just $39.99, right?
That's right.
on denttrainer.com.
Or you go to
Line
Dent
board.
Trainer and watch them all.
Yep.
Hey, speaking of that, go to Dent Trainer. You guys, listen. I'm gonna give out the code if you guys want. It's not up there. John Hiley took it down. We're gonna change the code after this podcast. 1 week from this podcast. If you guys want the 6 months for $179, it's not there. But if you get on now, I'll give you 1 week. You can go on there. Raincheck 100. Put in the promo code Raincheck 100. Okay. So go to denttrainer.com. Check it out. Tons of good tutorials and videos. So here we go. Back to the show.
All right. So yeah, in fact the line board has saved me on some motorcycle tanks because you got all these weird curves on some of these rice rockets, and it's invaluable. So
Cool.
check it out.
Now, Daniel, you were very adamant about not glue pulling on a motorcycle gas tank. And I did post something about glue pulling on a Kawasaki tank that showed up on MPDR yesterday, and you didn't respond. So I don't know if you are.
I left my computer home.
He's bad at responding to
yesterday.
messages, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to clarify it, it's okay to glue pull on a Japanese rice rocket. It's
So-
not okay to glue pull on a Harley Davidson.
So
That's correct.
here's why I was. So if anybody is on my Moto PDR World Facebook page, so I had a customer contact me. He had a Sportster tank, had a dent, and it was a difficult dent. And he had tried his local PDR guy. And his local PDR guy said he had my tools. I don't know if he had my tank vise, but he said he had my tools. And he first attempted to do a glue pull. And the dent was on the lower part of the tank, and there was a pinstripe that goes along the bottom. And so he glue pulled right over the pinstripe. All pinstriping on Harleys, factory Harleys, are a decal. If you glue pull over that decal, how strong is a decal going to be against glue pulling? It's going to fail every time, and it pulled the paint off. And it ticked me off that some guy out there, some dent tech, if he bought my tools, he's not paying attention to MPDR World or the boards, or not paying attention to what we're saying out there. And it just got me angry. Sorry.
It's got me angry.
He had a moment.
I did.
Do not pull on Harley tanks.
Well, that's a given.
Ever.
That's 101. Don't pull glue pull
If there's
Harleys.
any
Definitely.
emblem decal, it's a sticker. If you glue pull on a sticker, you're going to pull that sticker off, whether it has clear coat on it or not. Period. Done. Over.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we're gonna get
All
on
right.
to tech tips now.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've
You want
got
me-
one.
You got one? Let me
I
go
do.
first.
Perfect. So I'm going to steal your thunder, both of you guys, because I got this tip from you guys.
All right, go for it.
It's Voxer. And all those Hail Techs out there. So I turned on a Hail Tech to Voxer, and he's running a Hail team. So Voxer is an app, and it works like a walkie-talkie.
Okay.
on your cell phone. Doesn't matter if iPhone or Android. And you turn your iPhone or Android into a walkie-talkie, and you can talk to all your Dentecs. And we use it to communicate between the four of us for our podcast. And the thing is great. And this guy who I turned it on to was running a hail team, and he goes, he emailed me, and he goes, "Oh my God, this thing is fantastic. I'm communicating with all my techs on this hailstorm in Texas, and we know every aspect of every job that's going on because of it." So Voxer is my tech tip.
Voxer.
Yep.
You know what?
We love it.
All right, since we're on app tech tips, then I'll give you guys one. Charlie Molina contacted me a couple weeks ago, and actually one of my students actually used it again for me to let me know what time he was going to be in a certain place. Vince kind of talked to me about different apps that do this, but the latest one that I use is called Glimpse. So did I mention this to you guys already? Or not to you guys, but did I mention it on the show?
Yeah, I just downloaded it.
I think you did mention it on a show.
Did I? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the first or second episode.
All right. Well, anyways, we'll do it real quick because this wasn't my original one. Get Glimpse too, guys. It's a good one. Your customers will love it because they'll feel like you really have a high-end service, because they really do appreciate you finding out what time you're going to exactly arrive. So it sends them a map of what you're doing, even if your speed, if you want them to. I turn that off because half the time I'm driving 80, 90 miles an hour sometimes, but not all the time. But I don't want them to know exactly my speed. Glimpse, Glym.
Just guys out there, just don't activate it when you're at the strip club, okay?
But really, my real tech tip is, you know how you guys have that backing? We work on that backing that had on a car, and you guys were just trying to get through it, and and push through it, and it makes a ridge, and then you can't get that last little bit out. Well, I use this especially with Bentleys, because Bentleys have those crazy backing, those thick, hard backing. What I do is I take a heat gun to the front of the panel, the outside of the panel, heat that sucker up, and then I take one of my sharp tools or my blade tip tools, and I just scrape that stuff right off. It comes right off. Some of it will just, you can actually scrape it off enough to pull it off and then put it back on if you want. But that helps. If you heat up the panel really hot, you're able to peel that backing back very easy with any tool you want of your choice. And then you'll have a good spot. Or you don't have to peel off the whole thing. You can at least scrape off the area that you're really trying to push that dent with. So that's my tool tech tip. Vinny?
Okay. I'm sitting here racking my brain trying to think of something. Really, I don't have any good ones except for the fact that the only thing that came to mind was whale tails. Take your whale tail and take it to a bench grinder and make it into a sharp edge. I think that, or you could use a file as well. Give it a little bit of an edge. It's good for cutting through glue or cutting through that backing tape that you're talking about there, Mikey.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I was at a hail thing, and these guys were dipping their whale tails in Vaseline, and they were dipping it in something else that were dipping it.
Goop.
Yeah, goop. Yeah, and they were slipping right. They were slipping right through that stuff. So
yeah, PDQ used to sell a jar of this goop that you would put on your tool to make it all slick and slippery. Yeah. And it actually worked good.
Yeah, it was probably goop.
All right, guys, that wraps it up for the tech tips. Hope you guys liked the show. It's pretty cool, man. We like to just check out different techniques and ramble on about different things. Hey, Liz, leave us a voicemail on our site. Ron Harris did. We didn't get a chance to play it this time. We'll play it on the next episode. Give some good feedback, and the guys at RX some good feedback about the app. So that was great. And don't forget to
level up your tools.
And as John says, join the revolution.
Join the revolution.
Go to our Facebook page. Thanks, guys.